The U.S. has superimposed sanctions regime on Venezuela's country-owned oil company PDVSA and forced the nation's war to take a peace transmission of force. Domestic Safety Advisor John Bolton told CEO Nicolas Maduro and his allies could no much longer plunder the holdings of the Venezuelan human beings. Efforts by the opposition to chafe Mr. Maduro include enlarged in latter days. The U.S. and more than rather than 20 countries include recognized opposition lead Juan Guaido as intermediate CEO. Exchequer Secretariat Stephen Mnuchin told the revenue of the buy of Venezuelan oil would now be deducted of Mr. Maduro's by the government, but the business could escape sanctions regime by recognition. Mr. Guaido. Venezuela is hard confident on the U.S. for its oil income, send 41% of its oil supply down there, time it remnant in the top 4 persons wet oil suppliers to the U.S. Mr. Maduro after announced he had said PDVSA to start policy and legislative activity in U.S. and world courts to defend its U.S. affiliate Citgo. In some developments, Mr. Bolton and Mr. Mnuchin told the sanctions regime were designed to hinder Mr. Maduro's by the government of take cash of the country oil business. We include extended to subject the corrupt practices of Maduro and his associates, and presence activity ensures they can no much longer plunder the holdings of the Venezuelan human beings, Mr. Bolton told. The U.S. activity blocks all PDVSA characteristic and interests object to U.S. jurisdictional, and prohibits U.S. countrymen of charming in transactions in them. But Mr. Mnuchin told us based affiliate Citgo could go unoperative if its income were deposited in a locked expense in the U.S. Mr. Bolton as well forced Venezuela's war to take the peace, more democratic and constitution transmission of force. As Mr. Bolton was declaring the sanctions regime at a Washington news story meeting, observers spotted a handwriting communication on his notebook. It recite 5,000 military to Colombia, although it is not clear which the tool. One watcher offered the obvious hook may be in violation of operative safety. Mr. Bolton rejected at the click meeting to guideline out war participation in Venezuela. A White's building representative after told while requested on the mention, as the CEO has told, all options are on the spreadsheet. Yet, one U.S. formal anonymously said AFP news story agent, we are not vision whatever how would supporting a probable detachment deploy to Colombia. Over in the day a country TV speak showed Mr. Maduro hospitable household diplomatic corps withdrawn of Washington, D.C. Venezuela ruined off relations in the U.S. recent 1 week in answer its acceptance of Mr. Guaido as intermediate lead and orderly all U.S. diplomatic corps to keep the nation. Yet, on Saturday Venezuela's Overseas Secretary announced it would enable 30 days for the two sides to set up concern offices in every other countries. The U.S. judgment to levy sanctions regime on Venezuela's country-owned oil business was designed at ratcheting up blood pressure on the Maduro by the government. Yet, it's difficult to forecast how lot of an effect the go will include, particularly with U.S. refineries had diminished orders in latter months in expectation of the move. On to Mr. Mnuchin. The Maduro by the government has tested elastic, in spite an economics in meltdown, an already abrupt reduction in oil manufacture and some U.S. efforts to insulate it. If countries such as China and Russia go on to supporting Venezuela, the by the government may be capable to circulation to them for further assist. Ivan Briscoe, the World Meltdown Team's program CEO for Roman America, said me on Friday he mind Maduro could pull through further sanctions regime. Meantime, he alerted how the position for Venezuelans would get worse should the US, China and Russia go on to consider the nation as a sucker in a greater policy play. Russia, China, Mexico and Turkey include openly supported Mr. Maduro. At a UN Safety Justice meet on Saturday, Russia charged Washington of drawing a coup. Yet, more than rather than a half a dozen Roman-US countries and Canada include supported Mr. Guaido as CEO. And on Saturday, several Europe countries consisting Spain, Germany, France and the UK told they would recognize Mr. Guaido as CEO if elections were not named during 8 days. Venezuela is in economical meltdown, hyperinflationary and shortages of main essential include hit its people difficult and inflicted millions to run. Mr. Maduro has florid domestic opposition and continuing world critique for his humane rights recording and processing of the economics. He was de-elected to a other period recent year, but the elections were contentious, in lot opposition candidates prohibited of fleeing or concluded.